Greetings, all Shardvixen, and today is Know Thyself blog. Alright, so we are in front of my comic book closet. Yes, I have a comic book closet. It also has books in it, mostly books that I use for research, for writing. But, you know, so non-fiction kind of books. I don't have a whole lot of them. They're really big books. The one back here that you see, that is the Encyclopedia of Spirits. Basically, it would be considered like a Bible for a pagan believer because it has all the other myths out there besides Christian myths. Being today is Easter, which is a kind of pagan holiday, but mostly a Christian holiday. It's based on some pagan stuff, but pretty much just it's about Jesus Christ. So I celebrate Easter, but on the pagan side, more of a spring ritual kind of thing. Really, it's just a time to buy candy and hide presents for my kids. That's me. I do have a spring festival as well, but that won't be till May 1st, which is Beltane. Alright, so, got that out of the way. Today we're talking about is Conan and Red Sonja. So, when I was about 5 years old, give or take, probably about 4 or 5 years old, my aunts and uncles would read comic books. Mostly my uncles. I had 3 older uncles. The youngest one being 7 years older, and of course the other one being like a teen when I was born. Anyway, so they read comic books, and they had this big, huge comic book box that they threw comic books in. And I remember falling into that box as a child, reaching in, reaching down into it and pulling out comic books of Batman and Superman. Mostly DC comic books. Okay, I think Spider-Man came into the scene probably when my youngest uncle was probably becoming like 8, 9, 10 years old. Okay, so I grew up loving comic books. Now, we had this place near us, this auction. I'm going to wiggle a lot because I'm sitting on my thighs and they tend to hurt. You'd think with all the fat they'd be squishy, but they're not. It's like bruising. It's a bruising feeling. Anyway, so they, at this auction, which wasn't like just an auction, they had an auction for all the animals, for the ranchers and stuff that lived on the outskirts of the town I grew up in. And then they had a farmer's market where all the farmers came in and sold all their stuff. But they had this one area between those in which people brought their yard sale, or people who had a business but wasn't a big enough business to have in a shop. And there was this guy who sold comic books. And he sold them for about, I think they were 4 for 50 cents, 8 for $1. I think he'd throw in an extra one, like 5 for $5. Somehow I would get this deal. But it didn't matter because I love comic books. Most of the comic books I bought at the time were 25 cents. But I didn't start buying comic books on my own until I was about 7 or 8 years old, when I could read them. Prior to that, I got them from my aunts, from that big giant box. But the first comic book that, the first 2 comic books that I collected personally myself was Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man, which I have none of anymore. I got rid of them in the 80s. Excuse me. I got rid of them in the 80s to pay for my obsession with the X-Men. I turned them all in for like, I don't know, $400 store credit so I could keep up my comic books because I was having problems with cash at the time. Because I didn't think about collecting comic books at that time. It didn't become a big deal about collecting comic books money-wise till the late 80s, 90s. Maybe later than that. Not positive. I'd have to look at when they started putting cards in the middle of comic books. And the covers started to change. That's when the explosion of buying and owning comic books began. And I want to say it's in the late 90s. But again, I'd have to look. And I don't have any of those comic books out at the moment. So the comic books we're going to look at are really Conan and Red Sonja. Now, Conan, I wasn't as big of a collector, but that's my first different than a superhero style comic book, because he's not really a superhero. I mean, he might fight for justice. I don't know. He probably for his own justice. Conan was big about his own justice. And then Red Sonja, which I have pretty much a lot of Red Sonja. I don't have as much Conan anymore. But, so I'm going to show you some of them and talk about them. So this might be a little weirder of a vlog because you won't see me talking as much, but you'll hear me. And maybe I'll put them up like this next to my face. Woo-hoo, woo-hoo. But you're going to see me turning a lot because I'm still not really great at editing with Hitfilm yet. This is going to be an experiment. We'll see how good it turns out today. Because this will be my first working with Hitfilm. And I did it in the past, so I don't want you to think like I just jumped into it. When I first started editing, I edited with Hitfilm, but my squishy brain forgets things, so I have to do a refresher course on it. Anyway, all right, so we're gonna look in my box. It's really deep in here, so you can see me moving off the camera while I talk. Hopefully, it doesn't bug too many of you perfectionists. It's very dark in this room, and I apologize, just really bad indoor lighting. So I have a couple different lights on. I didn't want to put too much light behind me because it reflects off of the tablet and then makes for a mess, and we know that some people are very picky about that. If I had more money, I'd learn, well, if I felt better, I'd go take a class in lighting. And I'd have a better camera because my daughter is a beautiful photographer and her camera died. So we use this one. Alright, so I'm going to get in here and I'm going to pull out some of these. Alright, so Red Sonja actually has quite a few series. I have the first 4, I think. So this is, but I wanted to find Conan first. So it may take me a bit of a moment to find Conan. I mean, I have some with Conan and Red Sonja in them, but that doesn't mean that I have, like, here's number 7, okay? Does this come backwards? Like, when you guys look at this, does it look backwards? Because to me, it looks backwards. I'm hoping it doesn't look backwards. Would it be different if I flipped it around? Alright, I'm so silly. It came out right. I had to look. Okay. So I don't have Conan. I don't think easy accessibility. I don't usually think about my vlogs. Sometimes I do all week. This week I've been thinking about animation. I've got animation on the brain because I'm working on Old McReaper's animation that I offered to make, and kind of an experiment at that. And it's been taking way too long. So, we're going to talk about Conan. So, Conan, and I do have a comic book with Conan on it. Did I not just show you guys that? I think I showed you it. I think I did. I think I have a bunch of them here. We'll see. You know, I have bunches and bunches of comic books. So, I don't have that one. I have others. I don't know, I just had that on there. There it is. Okay, so here's one. That was the one we looked at, right? So this is number 7 of the original Red Sonja. But Conan's who I'm going to talk about first. Because Conan's who I started reading first, and then I went to Red Sonja. But I was like really excited because I knew who Conan was from Robert E. Howard. But the Conan in the comic books isn't really like the Conan in the books. Okay, and the Red Sonja isn't even in the books, which was very disappointing when I went out to look for more stuff about her, because I really liked the character. But anyway, so Conan, I guess, would be my first awareness of a male body. Sadly, in comic books is where I got it from. Of the impersonate of the knight. You know, the knight in shining armor that you're told as a child, as a girl child. Now, I don't know about children now, because I didn't raise my daughter that way. But as a young girl in the 60s, late 60s, 70s, I remember hearing stories, and my mother, you know, the Prince Charming, who was going to, someday you would have a Prince Charming. That was the concept in my house. So I had determined at a young age, this was my Prince Charming. If I was going to have a Prince Charming, you know, he wasn't this lifelong crush I had also, but this is what it kind of going to look like. Not really into dark-haired men. I mean, I won't sell them out because My son's father had dark hair. But I won't kick him out of bed for eating crackers. Bald's just as nice, though. Which is my daughter's father. Was dark-haired, bald. What hair he had was dark. So it's kind of funny. I ended up with lots of dark-haired men, but not my preference. I really like the redheads. I think men with red hair is intriguing to me. I don't know why. I met a lot of redheads. I just didn't date a whole lot of redheads. Because there's stereotypes that go with hair color, I guess. But, yeah, so someone with a body like that with beautiful red hair and that really red hair, that fine, almost strawberry blonde on across their chest and down their arms would be like, ooh, yeah, that'd be the thing, I guess. They turn white, too, so it's really cool. A lot of the really strawberry blonde people or deep auburn people will turn, with the bright reds, will turn more white hair than they will, like, gray hair. That was a tangent. All right, anyway, so Conan was the dude. And Conan, I don't think, was, like, it was probably not my mother's idea of Prince Charming. Because he didn't fight for justice. I mean, for himself, you know, what was right for him was what he did. But, so, from Conan, and my favorite Conan episodes that I can remember, I have to read them, was, the very first Conan actually came out before I was of the age to read. It came out in 1973. So, I was only, well, see, in 1970 I was 5. I was about 8 years old, so I would have read Conan if I could have gotten it, but my mother probably would not have let me buy it at that time. I have to say probably about 7 or 8, 9 years old, I was buying comic books. So I did not have some of the earlier Conan episodes. Actually, 1970s when he came out. So I was 5. Because I was trying to figure out, wait, I was buying comic books in 1973. I was using all my allowance for that. But number 83 is when you see Red Sonja in Conan. And I had that episode, that issue. I don't know why I want to call it episode, issue. And I liked her. I don't know why. I liked Belit. I think is how they pronounce it. I'm not positive, having never heard it said. That was Conan's girlfriend who was a she-pirate. I liked her too. In fact, one of the reasons I quit collecting Conan was they killed her off in episode 100, series 100, issue 100. I can't talk. They killed her, and I was like, well, that sucks. I wasn't excited no more about Conan. I was like, what? You're gonna make this poor man wander around without his true love? So I was a little. It really upset me. I can't remember how old I was in 100. Let me see. I'm sure I wrote it down. It's not very professional of me. I can't remember what I wrote down. I was about 14 years old. So, 2 years after that, I started reading X-Men for Wolverine. So, I guess, and they killed off all his girlfriends too. That was like, whatever. Why would you kill off loves? I mean, I know it happens in real life. Okay, don't get me wrong. But in a fantasy world, why would you need the lone wolf kind of guy? I guess it makes you more savage, and it actually makes your heart really sad. And Conan was no different, because he went through this period of time where he was like bemoaning the fact that she was dead. And he had met Red Sonja earlier than he had met the she-pirate. My favorite episode, my favorite issue, I'm going to say episode for this whole time. My favorite issue of Conan was the Sea Witch one. And I wrote a poem, I took the poem out of it and kept it with me forever. I don't have the comic book anymore, I don't think. If it is, it's buried safe someplace. And it has this beautiful poem that went with it. I put it on my Discord, so maybe I'll copy it here so you can read it. Actually, she tries to kill him. And then he has to kill her, and she turns into foam in his hands. But that was one of my favorite. I don't know why. I like the way the drawings were in it, and I like the story, I guess, is probably what it is. And that was, episode 90. That was series issue 98. I can't talk. My brain's all squishy today. I'm sorry. And it was 1979, just before I was graduating from 8th grade, I think. I wasn't quite 14. I'd be 13 and would be turning 14. So it had an impact on me because that's my puberty time. That's when I started developing my sense of me and my sense. Well, I probably developed my sense of me earlier on, but this is where it was starting to gel in. This is where rebellious periods of time start to occur. This is where you push away from your parents and people that are older than you, and you develop a sense of who you are. And so the things that come from that time period have an essence of being layered throughout your life, but they're always kind of core there. They're the part of your core being, besides things that occur earlier. But these have bigger impact because these are things that you consciously try to be. So I consciously was very into the idea of Red Sonja, and that's why I probably is right about that period of time that I started buying a lot of Red Sonja, and I was avidly collecting Red Sonja. So when we talk about Red Sonja, this is the very first one. Roy Thomas, I know it's going to have a glare to it, and I'm sorry. Roy Thomas and Barry Smith are the writers and the creators of Red Sonja. So I was under the impression, because Conan came from R.E. Howard, so did Red Sonja. She did in a way, but not this character that you see. Later on, the myth of Red Sonja changes over a period of time, and there were, in the 80s, there was a series of paperback books, which I have as well. And if I can find them or find the covers, I will, share them in the blog. The covers were done by Boris Vallejo, who you all know is one of my favorite artists, if you read if you saw my art blog. So, the number on here, the darkness on here sometimes is because if I remember right, no, it's just the way it's coming across to you guys. Some of these, when I first bought them on the plastic, they had a big slash that went across the black slash. I tried to take most of those off, but, this was the she-devil with a sword to the death. And I love the fact, because there I drew that unicorn. It's in one of my art things. There's a unicorn in it. Another myth. The battle unicorn. That one looks like a battle unicorn. I love that. So we're going to pull this out. I own these comics, but I can't, make money off of them. This one's in pretty good shape. Do I see the back side? I don't collect comic books for it. So they're very weathered look to them. I mean, they're old, right? But I like the artwork. The artwork was always my favorite in this. This is the artwork that I enjoyed in comic books probably the most, because it covered, it covered a lot if you look at it. It there was stuff going on within the panels. And so I always liked that kind of artwork. People weren't like people are now in comic books. But they have her, a virgin. Most people don't know that. They have Red Sonja as a virgin climbing on top of the unicorn. So one of the myths of Red Sonja was that she had been raped, and tortured by these bandits. And she pleaded to the goddess, and the goddess gave her the power to fight back. And that she would never be able to fall in love until she could fall in love, but she would never be able to become a normal person until she found the person that could beat her in sword fight. That's a myth that was created later. That wasn't the myth that it started out. If you read Roy Thomas's storyline and stuff, the story they give her is a little different. But there was always the question of the steel bikini, and the idea of the steel bikini was more of a symbol than it was for protection, because she was protected by divineness. She'd always win in the sword fighting. She might take injury, but she would never. No one could beat her till her true love. So that was the idea behind that. But she would be able to, she wouldn't be able to be defeated. So that's kind of a interesting thing. Here's number 2. Right. Number 3. So, and I read that they tried to. So when we went to, like, here's another series by him, in which was based off that movie, right? The Red Sonja movie, in which this wasn't Conan. He was supposed to be Conan, but he wasn't. And they put her not in a steel bikini, as you noticed, because of steel bikini. But anyway, the steel bikini was a symbol. It was kind of a funny ha-ha in the face of her villains, because she didn't need any cover. She didn't need any protection. She could show all of her, that was her. However you want to view it, whether she was a slut or whatever, you could see that whole her there. But she wasn't a slut. She was a virgin. Well, not a virgin. She was a virgin in the aspect of not being in love, on the idea of the battle unicorn. Because I made that point, but then she was raped. So how could she be raped and be a virgin? But she can, because people can be raped and be a virgin, because virgin is also a mental state. So that's to help you guys if you were confused by that. Yeah, this is a different series here. See, they have her wearing a different outfit. And then here's another series, which reminded me more of Tomb Raider style. You know, Red Sonja. And this was their idea. That it would be more likely she would wear, historically speaking, though where they come from, there is no historical speaking, so what does it matter how they dress? But that was it. This, of course, is one of my favorite covers. I really like that cover. I practiced drawing with Red Sonja. Here's another one. You know, I practiced drawing with Red Sonja. There's another whole issue that came out recently of Red Sonja that I don't have, because I quit actively collecting comic books probably about 5 years ago. They're just really expensive, and the storylines are a little weird now for me. But I enjoy reading Wolverine comic books, not so much Red Sonja anymore. I'm not at a vengeful female goddess type anymore, so that's not really where I'm at. But when we look at knowing thyself, the idea of a female, even divinely given, who could go out and do justice is awesome to me. It's something that I would be really interested in. Now, a lot of feminist people of the time period, remember I have to move around, my knees are bothering me, didn't like Red Sonja. The same reason that they didn't like Tank Girl. The same reason they don't like a lot of women heroes that are created by men. Because they're taken still from the men's viewpoint of what a female should be. And then enforcing it on women's viewpoints of how women should be. I don't adhere to that as much, because I believe that I read comic books to escape to another world, to read stories, same way I read books. And how I took from that is solely from how I am. Now, there is always going to be that overlying bubble. We talk about bubbles a lot in my vlogs. There's always going to be that layer from other things. And I was born in 1965, right in the middle of the 60s. And the 70s and the 80s, there was a lot of changing of how females perceive their world. And even today, having worked with children in the past, I find that there are a lot of women that still adhere to that idea, in the Midwest especially, who adhere to that idea that the woman's job is all these things, and the man's job is to protect them. And it's kind of weird, because I don't think that's how it is. I think that women can protect as well as men can protect. It should be, a couple stand by to get by. But I've met, believe it or not, people who love the same sex who have these ideals that still come across as well. So culture, how we view things, is based on our cultural sense of what is raised around us. I try to raise my children with the idea that they would be non-gender as much as possible. Once the outside world seeps in, the non-genderization takes over. Non-genderization loses and genderization takes over. Because everybody wants to know what a girl is or what a boy is and where you stand in that line of male or female. As far as it goes with Red Sonja, I don't think the bikini wasn't there to so much say that she was a female, you know, as much as it was to say I'm a female you can't fuck with. That's pretty much what I took the steel bikini to be, is a way of saying, just because I wear this doesn't mean I'm yours. You can't have me and do whatever you want with me. This is more of a mockery towards you about that. Alright, so that's it for this one. And if you have any comments or questions or want to share your favorite comic book, go ahead. I will be visiting one comic book a month and sharing them with you. I'll be pulling them out of this comic book closet. We'll turn it around a little. I have, as you can see, there's books there. There's comic books there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes here. 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes there, and then I still have one, and I have 3 boxes here, and they're stacked. So what is that? 8, 9, 10, 11 boxes of comic books and miscellaneous ones that are just piled in there because I haven't got the rest of my comic book boxes. All right, so that's it. Have a great Easter. Catch you all on the flip side.